welcome to the Climate Show. I'm Theo Talcott, your host, joined by Garrison, Bob, Mr. Levis,
Night.
and someone down there. Anyway, we're here to talk about climate change and the world as it is, and we're hoping to have a good and wide, informative conversation about the nature of our world.
So, the other day I was reading the newspaper, you see, and I heard the government's gonna tax you for all the gases you emit from your behind. Yeah, it's kooky, but it could work. Yeah.
I eat a lot of beans. Does that mean I would get taxed more than?
That means that you gotta plug up your behind.
What about if I eat a lot of meat, which I don't? Then would I be charged for the extra methane that goes from cattle production?
I think that was part of it.
This is a good idea.
Yeah,
Bob,
I know.
will you run for president, Bob?
Only if you're my side man, my
Okay.
vice.
I'll be your vice.
Okay.
I mean, I think, you and I could have a future. I think, look at the people who are running now. You are at least as electable as Herman Cain.
Herman Cain ain't got nothing on me.
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Can you make pizza?
I can make pizza with one hand. What do you
you-
think of that?
Do you acknowledge that that climate change is real and is caused by humans?
I acknowledge that climate change is nothing. Yeah.
Well, you'll fit right in with the Republicans.
Yeah,
but
that's
we
what I'm
want
talking
maybe
about.
run you as independent.
No, Republican.
Okay.
Deal with it,
Okay.
vice.
I mean, I consider myself a pretty good Christian, so I could be your vice president.
All right, we can try.
I mean, I think are you Christian?
I'm half Christian. The other half is Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa. I think that we can work with that. I mean, there's a bunch of Mormons running.
Your complexion really doesn't look Kwanzaan.
Well, maybe it's 'cause I got myself burned when I was doing my music video. Michael Jackson. Yeah. Yeah.
Damn. Outstanding.
Wow.
The world is so much better with Bob. I
Oh
love you,
yeah.
Bob, really, this show should be yours. I mean, I'm not
Oh,
putting you
I
on the
think
spot.
I think I
Don't
hear
get
a new
nervous.
host.
Oh God, you're really gonna offer me a show, a
Yeah.
full-time show?
You're gonna be
Full-time
famous,
show.
Bob.
Okay.
You could be the Bob presidential campaign climate show.
Oh my God, what a platform! I must stand on it.
Could I be involved?
So-
Maybe, could I be the supplier of hummus for the campaign?
Supply me with hummus and all your za'atar. Oh, za'atar.
Oh, you like Zatar?
Oh, rubbed all over my chest. Yeah.
I think you're going to fit right in with the Republicans in Washington. I hear they have a lot of kind of mysterious, on-the-sly, kinky sex.
Kinky as in.
Like they go to the Watergate Hotel and have big gambling games, and high-end prostitutes come and.
Stick chips up their tuchus?
Yeah. Well, man, I haven't actually been to any of them. I read about them.
Right.
So we're talking about climate change, Bob.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you deny climate change is caused by humans, or do you just deny that it's caused by you?
I deny that it's caused by anything. I think that climate change is just a whole bunch of horse poop. Climate changes by itself, you see?
Well-
Have you seen The Inconvenient Truth, the Al Gore movie?
No, I think Al Gore is a phony, baloney.
Well,
Well, what?
I don't know if I can be your vice president then. I really need to support a candidate who wants to deal with climate change and make it a priority. We could talk to you about it. Climate change is real. It's definitely happening. All the scientists say so. You don't have to just, stick with this dumb position just because it's sort of the cultural norm or because you don't know enough about it. I admit the science is really complicated, but it's not so complicated. Let me see if I can explain it. So,
Break it down.
the more smoot you put in the sky, the less the sun bounces back off, and it creates this greenhouse effect over the sky that keeps it warmer. And it doesn't have to be very much carbon in the air to change it a whole lot. So I think we really got to get it together. And did that make sense? Is that a good explanation?
Yeah, but, I mean, come on. If you're talking about smut, how do you stop your gases flowing?
Well, good
Bob.
point. Some things we will probably always be doing as a human species,
Yeah.
farting and but SUVs that get 10 miles per gallon, those probably have to go. And I take away your sort of American lifestyle if you're really attached to it. But being an American means many more things than driving an SUV to the mall. It also means standing up for the truth and being a sort of avant-garde global citizen for human rights. Human rights were very much put forward during the American endeavor. We have a lot to be proud of. We're not like just America bashers for no reason, although there's plenty to bash.
I'm not an American basher.
No, me neither.
I'm an American
We're damn
lover.
patriots here. We're trying to save the planet, and that includes this country. And really what we want to stop is this sort of like stupid version of America, which is like, let's just eat everything and die in 10 years. You know, which is really where we're at as a species. Like, if we want to burn every last bit of fossil fuel, it's game over for the human race, and that's terrible and stupid. We have to fight against it with every last breath of ourselves. Every last breath or puppet.
Here, here.
I second that emotion.
Second that
Da-da,
emotion.
da-da.
Well, if you feel like living me and you've got the notion, wah, wah, wah. Second that emotion. Ba-da-ba-dow.
I would like to bring your attention to the New York Times article where they're opening shipping lanes up in the Arctic because the thing is melting. And I just think that's like the new reality we live in is the world is rapidly changing, what Bill McKibben called the new Earth. And suddenly, it seems funny though, the Republican presidential candidates want to be in denial of it, and I just wonder what you guys think of that.
Well, I mean, I think this article is a pretty good example because they're in denial of it, but this gives them the ability to just roll full forward and say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, look, we're going to be able to cut down on shipping time. Like, global warming is a good thing. Let's just melt that whole ice cap, and then we can just circumvent all these things. Like, why even have to deal with little passageways and stuff? Like, you know, let's start cranking out more CO2. Maybe.
I think they won't deny that the climate is necessarily changing, but they would say it's normal fluctuations and it's not human caused. That's the real thing that they don't want to take responsibility for. So I don't think anyone's actually saying let's make more smoke so that we can open more shipping lanes, because I think they at least pretend to believe that it doesn't
I think they just
cause
don't want
it.
to disturb the American sort of fantasy of like everybody have your big car and drive as much as you want. And what do you think, Bob?
I think the only denial that is really out there is in Egypt. Denial!
Thanks. I heard they came up with a solution at the United Nations, though, to decrease the temperature of the planet and everything.
What?
Start using Celsius.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Was
You
it
can count on
George?
the United Nations.
What
Yeah.
about Kelvin? Long forgotten.
Calvin.
But still
Kelvin's
there.
good, yeah.
Wasn't George Bush saying something about climate change too?
George Bush.
He had.
Forgot about that guy.
I know. I've been trying to forget about him too. My theory about him is he's like the abusive uncle that no one wants to talk about anymore. It's like, oh, Uncle Bush, you know. So it's down the memory hole. Like, let's not remember those
Oh,
terrible decades.
we have a whole new uncle in the house. You know, we've got Uncle Obama. You know, it's like you can have different uncles, but they're all kind of the same dirtiness. Dirty uncles.
I heard Obama's finally getting serious about climate change.
Really?
Yeah, he's going to fight climate change.
How's he gonna
How?
do that?
How?
Sending 20,000 troops to the sun.
Brilliant. I always knew that he had a solid plan in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Halliburton is going to go with him. Halliburton.
Get paid on both ends.
Obama's got to make a decision on the XL pipeline coming up. They want to put this like 1,700-mile pipeline down the United States. The State Department has to sign off on it, and it looks like they're set to do it. There was the ranchers that it has to go through their property, so this Canadian company is trying to do eminent domain and like kind of force these ranchers to put the pipeline on their land. So a bunch of those guys are suing, and I really hope that doesn't pass. If Obama passes the XL pipeline, I really think we have to find a different candidate to support.
Is it up to Obama? Does he actually get...
He has the final say because it's a State Department issue. The State Department's gonna sign off.
I heard that they had already illegally begun construction on it in parts. Like there's areas where they've already started clearing, even though obviously the decision has not officially been made. They're already trying to
That's true.
squeak it forward.
Has Obama given any
The State Department is it looks like they're poised to do it. So I think the sort of public outcry started sort of late, and they got caught.
Other than you and Daryl Hannah, has there been really a big outcry? I haven't heard a lot in the mainstream media.
It's been in the New York Times a bunch, and it's true. Daryl Hannah was arrested in front of the White House in a splash, and I was too, as part of the something like 1,200 people were arrested as part of doing civil disobedience in front of the White House.
But still, I don't think that's really on most people's radar.
Bob, would you ever want to get arrested in front of the White House?
Only for public indecency. Yeah.
Well, Oliver, I mean, how would you expect it to actually be on people's radar when it's not covered in any really mainstream media? I mean, most people are so media deprived, and to really get the nuggets of what's going on, you have to actually look a little bit. And
It's true, but even in like, for example, it hasn't been like one of the main protest things of the protest movement that we see. They get publicity, but I mean, I have seen only incidental mention of it as one of the protesters' issues. You know, I'm just saying, like, even in the leftist, liberal media, whatever you want to say, like
but it's not leftist
I know.
liberal media.
Well, the non-mainstream sources of media, I haven't seen it being taken up widely. I mean, it seems like a fringe issue.
Climate change.
Not climate change in general, but specifically
Right.
the tar sands thing. Like, people aren't really that aware of it, I don't think. Like,
Well, this brings me to this thing I read, a beautiful article in the New York Times this weekend about America sort of not being as up on climate change as the rest of the world. And a lot of other countries are taking it quite seriously, even though their economies aren't as strong as ours, and they are starting to deal with it. And yet in America, the amount of people that think climate change is real and important has gone down in recent years. When Al Gore put his movie out 5 years ago, it was something like 79% of Americans thought it was really important and an issue we should deal with, and now it's down to 59%. This is in response to a very well-funded propaganda campaign by ExxonMobil and the Koch brothers to sow doubt in people's minds whether the climate science is real. And so that's one of the reasons we're doing this show, is to try and push the issue of climate change into the public, and intend to be making this show until we solve the climate crisis.
On that tip, I mean, I think it's something I want to continually bring up because a lot of people don't know about it, but it definitely affects climate and lots of other things. You mentioned the Koch brothers, and I mean they're behind Herman Cain. What's
Herman Cain, yeah.
His whole 999 tax status or structure. I mean, that was basically legislation drafted by the Koch brothers. So it's like people, not only climate issues, political issues, everything, people need to understand that these things don't just come up on the table. I mean, they're
Right.
things that are strategically thought out and manipulated usually by billionaires and or by corporations that are worth billions. So,
Right. I mean, we're up against an incredibly profitable industry that makes so much money, and they don't want to go out of business. They don't want to have to pay carbon taxes, and so they funded this whole political operation to get their needs met. And I heard Herman Cain's got like 10 people on his staff that are directly work for the Koch brothers and another.
the thing that is just so ingenious about the whole thing, you have to, just respect it purely for how clever it is the way that they've intertwined the social issues with the corporate interest. Like,
Right.
they have inspired people to get out there and be mad and be so serious and so committed to things that are actually not in their interest, because they will associate one issue which people care about with an issue which only benefits corporations.
Can you give an example?
Oh, sure. They'll take, for example, gay marriage.
I'm afraid of homosexuals,
or
therefore I must support
abortion
this entire
rights.
thing.
So there's a thing where people get riled up on that in conservative circles and churches and stuff like that. But then by somehow connecting that with climate change or with corporate taxation or things that have nothing to do with it, but under the umbrella of social conservatism and the mantle of the Tea Party and the conservative, but it's bankrolled by the Koch brothers, and it's been strategized in back rooms by people that are very smart and very good at figuring out how to undermine the liberal and open-minded parts of the population which actually have the truth on their side, but yet can't get it together to actually be effective. And so,
which is a much bigger chunk of the society. Like if you actually ask people like what they want, by and large, they almost always support, more government spending on social programs, cutting the military, dealing with climate change, all these good issues. But then the Republicans have harnessed this very powerful beast, which is this socially conservative Christian movement, and they kind of made this the devil's bargain with the corporations, where they said, well, we give you the voters, and you give us the sort of red meat issues we care about, these like conservative, reactionary positions, and on the other hand, we'll just like let the corporations do whatever they want. And it's incredibly unchristian, for one, is to like support bankers who want to kick widows out of their homes, and Christ talk about a million things, so standing up for the poor. So I just think it's like one of the great hypocrisies of sort of that movement.
Speaking of that, I was actually listening to Christian radio in the car this morning, and
God bless.
yeah, it was VPR is in the middle of a pledge drive, so that sort of tunes me out. So I was listening to another thing, and it was actually fascinating because they were talking about the Occupy Wall Street, which we've been talking about a little bit on the climate show, maybe a lot, but anyway, they were totally trashing it in such a premeditated way to make it sound bad. They kept talking about how anti-Semitic it was.
VPR was
No, not VPR. I was listening to a Christian talk radio.
And they were talking about how
No,
anti-Semitic
the pledge drive wasn't getting into that. No, they were avoiding the
VPR is
dicey topics.
anti-Semitic?
No, nobody's anti-Semitic except the Christian talk radio channel that I was listening to was saying that Occupy Wall Street was anti-Semitic probably because there were people there that were taking on the Palestinian cause. And although I didn't notice very much of that, but I certainly wouldn't be surprising if there was some of that. But still, my understanding is that it was completely open-minded to the crowd, and there was a sukkah there, which is the Jewish hut from the holiday that's just happening now. I mean, but they were fear-mongering, basically saying to people, they were saying, using the word anarchist a lot, and that these people should go out and get jobs, and what are they doing? Just making trouble, breaking the law in park. And they were actually comparing it to, they were saying, we do civil disobedience for pro-life issues, but we have a clear demand, and we know that we are breaking a law, but we have a demand. We're not just loitering in breaking the law just because we're aimless anarchists, but we say this is why we're here. This is the cause that we want people to understand. These are our demands. And they were complaining that that was completely missing from the Wall Street protests, which, of course, it's a totally different thing where it's a broad range of issues that people are representing. But that was their gripe.
I mean, that thing continually comes around and around, like, oh, it's unclear, whatever. I mean, obviously that's criticism to just kind of trash talk and try and take down. But I mean, it's like when you're talking about huge social ills, you can't boil it down to one issue. Like the issue is social change, and that has so many facets. I mean, you can't say, oh, what's your one point that you want to change? Well, the insanity and the dysfunction of this entire system. You can't boil that down into this is the issue we want to change. I mean, there's so many things that are overlapping and intertwined in that. To boil it down to one issue is really, I don't even think, a possibility. I mean, it's a systemic problem that's inherent within our culture that's killing the planet. And I think that's a lot of the reason that people have a hard time with climate change too, is because I mean, it's not given the proper attention. And if you do care about the climate, you're either like a tree-hugging hippie or an idealist or whatever. They'll do anything to try and knock you down. And it's also because it can be put off for decades. Like, by the time we actually get to the point where everything is in a total environmental collapse, then it's too late. But if you're talking about it ahead of time, it's like, oh, climate, oh, what's that?
We're going to go to a quick commercial break. Be back in 2 minutes, and take note of this beautiful message from our corporate sponsor, who has just signed on. Thank you guys for being your support for the Climate Show.
I mean, it's like Okay, there's the concept of people driving their own vehicles, and that's actually a much smaller percentage. I mean, the biggest consumers of fossil fuels and all of this waste is the military-industrial complex and everything that comes out of that. And that's actually our largest export is military-industrial, well, mostly arms and weaponry to other countries. So basically, America's...
That's America's largest export?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something most people don't know about.
Are you sure it's not like corn and soybeans?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you kidding me?
Well, maybe.
I haven't heard this fact
no,
either, but
if you look at dollar figures, and if you just think about
I
it,
guess
like,
a pound of guns costs a lot more than a pound of beans. Right?
Yeah.
one F-14 is like
Yeah, and so it's like there's this whole philosophy that the wars of the future will be fought. The wars of the future will be fought by the machines that need the oil to fight the wars of the future. It's basically like this cyclical thing. Like the reason that we're expanding and gobbling up all these resources at the expense of the climate is to fuel our our empire expansion around the globe. You know, having over 100 bases in different countries around the world, waging 6 illegal wars at least right now going on, all this stuff, like that's a tremendous amount of fuel and energy that's needed, and therefore
good thing it worked out in Libya. That one was illegal, but at least it went well.
Well, and also, why do you say illegal? What makes one
weren't
illegal and another legal?
Well,
Congress has
okay,
to
I mean,
say. Congress
I'm
has to
just
say
saying,
there.
yeah, I mean, technically, Congress would have to approve
Some of them
our
were.
aggression and intervention.
I mean, I think
in
that
other
some of them were
countries.
authorized by Congress.
I haven't heard of.
I think Iraq was definitely, and then Afghanistan was somehow. I don't know the facts, but I think that those ones went through the channels. I mean, I'm not saying that
Somalia.
things are justified. That was a surprise move. I didn't know too much about.
I mean, the world is shaking at its core. This thing about like Africa and a bunch of crazy Muslims taking over the Horn of Africa, does not sound good to me either. So, I think it's an incredibly complex, delicate moment for the globe, and I don't know what I'm saying, but
how can people stop being so greedy and see the bigger picture and get along? That's like the fundamental mission of the climate show, is to help people get along and get
Why
it together.
can't we all just get along?
I don't
think that's the issue. I think
it's totally
actually
the issue because
regular humans are doing fine. It is the
you gotta
corporate
do back and forth. Yeah.
back and forth, yeah.
the
Okay.
it's corporations and the financial industry and the big business that's running us amok.
Well,
Every person you bump into is a nice person, probably. I mean, I don't ever see anyone like, oh, that person's wrecking the planet. But it's collectively, and it's this sort of headless, humanless, sociopathic corporate entities that are willing to, like, sell guns to Pakistan and India. Like, bringing it back around, your point about exporting guns is like, one of the things that concerns me is, like, I know a little bit of Indian history because I've spent time in India. But this thing with Pakistan is like completely an arms race conflict. It's this intramural. They thought it was going to be like on the other side of the world, they'll sell guns to both sides, make a lot of money. And now it's this like terrible, like intractable problem of these countries that really, Pakistan should be a province of India, really. If the partition had gone a little better, it still would be.
you just like India better because you're a Ganesh.
I like India better because India is a democracy and also has beautiful spiritual practices. And Pakistan has been nothing but a pain in the butt since it got started.
Wow, you don't sound very open-minded there, Captain.
Sorry.
So I would like to go back to what I think I see as the necessary step for humanity. I think it transcends any one issue, whether it's climate change or all these other things. If you almost want to look at tackle big problems like how Occupy Wall Street is too broad for any one issue. So to me, the biggest issue of all is people seeing that all of humanity and everyone on this earth has to acknowledge our interdependence on each other as the overwhelming issue of our time, that we have to get it together and have to stop just thinking for ourselves. My religion is better than your religion, my company is better than your company, my business, my country needs this money that your country can't have it. I mean, if it's going to work out, it's like you have to see it as a playing field that is so interrelated. You can't just deny that, we're going to build a fence around our country or we're not going to work with you. It's just like there has to be some level of understanding, and it's fine if you want to just do the right thing in your own bubble and show everyone else this is how good it can be. That's fine too. You don't have to go and change other people, but you can't be screwing other people. You have to be like helping the ship to come up, not pushing it down. And I feel like everybody, it's all people. I mean, you can't just say it's a corporation, it's not people, because there's people that are calling the shots, but they're swept up by the momentum, which is sometimes going backwards. It's not being positive. So I'm saying you have to see your role in the world and say, this is what I can do to make it better, not just go along with it because this is how it's going down. But you got to fight that and make it.
I agree. We have to think more holistically and think as a planet and as a species, and plan for success for everybody, and that includes people in Africa and in Middle East.
Curmudgeons like Bob.
Curmudgeons like climate deniers too. We want everybody to be happy and succeed. I would also say that I think that there really is a problem though with the corporate structure, that they're not humans in the same way. It's like they don't die. They have all the rights of personhood now, and they're insulated from the effects. Like,
isn't it funny we say the Koch brothers? I mean, I don't know either of their first names, but they're brothers. I mean, they're brothers. They must be humans. They're brothers.
David.
Right, but I mean, I think what Theo's saying, I hear what you're both saying, but I mean, on a certain hand, corporations aren't the problem because there's people running them, but corporations, given the right of personhood, does make it a problem because they can live forever, they can amass more wealth than people, etc. Like they have all the benefits of being a living person, but then they don't have the negatives. Like they don't die, they keep going, and so they can do things that people can't do.
And they're not inherently moral either. Like a corporation
They're
can
not
make
moral.
choices that like are immoral or frankly sociopathic, which is like sociopathic is a clinical psychological term meaning like the inability to feel pain of others. Like
It's true, but
empathy.
you see these things, the 99%, right? We are the 99%. Well, that 1%, there's still people with human emotions, and they have to realize that it shouldn't be at 99%, 1%. It should be 100%, which is everybody.
I agree.
So bring yourself back into the fold. Come back. And the Koch brothers, they must be people. Like we talk a lot about corporations. I don't know these people, but I'm sure that they're people, and I'm sure that they should be able to understand the effect that burning coal has on our planet.
This is where the difference is, and I used to struggle with that a lot. I would always be like, oh, insert whatever name. How could the Koch brothers, the Bushes, the Obamas, whatever? How could these people make the decisions they make, knowing that, they have children, they have families? Like, how can you make decisions that trash the planet when you're a human being too? But it goes back to that sociopathic thing. It's like, you can go out and you can find people that commit horrible crimes against other people, and it usually comes from some sort of condition where they're lacking empathy, they're sociopathic, psychopathic, whatever. I mean, those are things that exist within our human consciousness. People that do not have the ability to feel empathy, and so therefore, and basically, from what a lot of way more dialed-in intellectual people have said is like that our country and corporations are basically run by sociopaths. Like we have promoted these dysfunctional humans to the highest levels of operating from within our political and social and business structures. And
so that's true to a degree, but I think that has been rewarded by society. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're not just you're encouraged to think that way. Your success has been the only goal. Not to say that helping to make things better is the goal, but actually to be successful is the goal in of itself, right? Having more money than your parents had, so that your children can have more money than you. I mean, that's just such a clear token thing that's taken for granted. That's success. That's capitalism. That's the way it's got to be. But actually, what we need is sustainability, and I think that it's just like you're talking to these people that are destroying the environment, or you talk to somebody that's selling drugs in the ghetto, and you're saying, but you're making your neighborhood worse. You're the problem. And it's like, well, look, just like the guy who's selling crack in the ghetto and the person that's selling coal in the Midwest, they both have to see that what they're doing is making it worse, and they want to get on the right side
Right,
and make
but
it better.
See, ultimately, this is where I think the difference is it's that companies don't think like people. They're not. It's not human in the same way.
You are giving human sociopathic is a human condition.
Right. What I'm saying is like
People can be
ExxonMobil
sociopathic.
is never going to say, yes, we understand that climate change is happening, and therefore we're going to voluntarily retire our business and donate the rest of our assets to the human race in perpetuity as sort of reparations for the climate war we waged on you.
Well,
Although that would be appropriate and human.
the problem is their motivations are only based on profit. Like, there's not ethics, there's not morality, there's not kindness. Their only goal, like the business's definition in their bylaws, is to yield profit for their shareholders. That's their only function.
But
Their
what
only
if the
function
shareholders demand it? What if the shareholders say that we would rather have a planet to stand on than to have another?
That's great, and there's the great work coming out of Tikkun and Michael Lerner, and talking about creating a triple bottom line where we have to include human happiness and ecological stability as part of how institutions and people are judged as sane and good contributors to society. And so I think we're moving towards a time where we're demanding corporate accountability and responsibility and ecological sustainability. And that's, I think, part of what the Occupy Wall Street is about, is saying, enough of this madness, you people. You can't just wreck the planet we're sitting on for the next 10 minutes. We have to have accountability. We have to be human scale. We have to protect future generations. And we've let the corporations run amok for a long time, and this is where we've gotten to a place where we've got 10 years to live before we have climate collapse.
Let's buy ExxonMobil.
Yes, anyone got $1 billion?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
think all these corporate leaders are just a bunch of Martians from Mars. They're not humans, and the way they shake hands is by licking feet. Yeah!
Try out. It's
That's deep.
sounds like Kurt Vonnegut, but yes, I would like to say, like, I'm not attacking the human beings that live and work inside Wall Street and corporations and ExxonMobil. I'm just saying that the general system is out of control, and I just think, as you were saying earlier, we have to really put together a new society that thinks long term, that is trying to live on this planet for another 10,000 years, and not just like think we're gonna like consume all the resources as like one last like sort of renters trashing the ski chalet before they go back to their.
So let's try appealing to the people that are working for the corporations, that are investing in the corporation. Come to our side, right?
Yes.
Donate your bonus to starting
To the climate show.
Not to
at
the climate show.
/
No.
donate.
Occupy. This was our friend Ryder had this idea, which he said, only such a small percent of the population are going to go protest in these movements. What everyone else can do is occupy your backyard. Go and plant your own garden. All right. Stop shopping at Walmart. Stop driving around in your SUV. Be a good person. Take care of your own family. And be a light to the world by showing that you're doing the right thing, and you're not relying on these corporate monsters for your livelihood and your needs.
That's really good. And I read something really interesting by Derek Jensen about this subject, and he said that the people have been for a long time demanding real political change for a lifestyle of goodness. And unfortunately, since I've spent a lot of my life trying to leverage this point of like, just eat organic eggs and grow organic food. This is my contribution. I think this is still a great, noble place to put our efforts. However, it is not a substitute for demanding political change and getting people in the highest levels of power who are fighting for the earth. And so we have to do both. We have to go occupy Wall Street and go occupy our backyards and occupy our own human hearts.
And I mean, for all the good and the bad, I mean, this country has, we have immense freedoms, which if we don't step up to the plate, they're being eroded every day. I mean, you can look at Tunisia, Bahrain, like all these countries where, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people out asking for a lot of the same things we're talking about. They're asking for a sane food system. They're asking for a democratic they're asking for the right to be able to have a say in their cultures, and they're just being mowed down by tanks and guns and stuff. It's like everybody around the world is wanting sanity, and there's a small percentage of people that are wanting to hold on to this path of insanity. And ultimately, all that we really can do, well, I mean, like Oliver's saying, it's like increasing independence and doing like being the light for yourself and for others. But it's like people, sad to say, it's like if we need direct action. It's like people need to understand that the best thing that they can really do besides the insular activities is you have to get out there and make your voice heard. Like if everybody just sits inside, like nothing's going to change, because if you look out on the streets, everything's quiet. Like there needs to be direct action. And sad to say, like
and it's happening this weekend. There was like there's like 1,000 demonstrations, 1,000 Occupy events all over the
Occupy Fargo.
Occupy everywhere.
Yeah.
So we are in this moment where there is some change afoot, and I hope it goes well and get the changes we need and survive for a long time on the species as a planet. Well, we're probably wrapping up here.
I think
Any
Bob
closing
has
comments?
Bob has a song.
Bob, do you have anything you want to add before we go?
I heard some people are trying to occupy the equator, and they got burnt like toast. Yeah.
Can you say? I didn't get it.
Well, people are on the equator, and they got burnt out, man.
Bert, like Bert and Ernie?
No, like burnt. Like
Burnt.
I burnt your hair on fire.
Because the equator's hot.
Yeah, you see?
Oh, because of climate change. It's true. I mean, Vermont is kind of a good place for climate change because it's getting cold around here, and I'd be like, boy, I wish it was warmer. But if you were down in Jamaica and it was like 110 degrees.
Of course, then it might be like Ice Age 2, right, in the future.
It's true. It could go a lot of different directions.
That was a lot better than Ice Age 1.
Ice Age 2. Earth 2.0. We're going for the sequel. I mean, maybe we're just on this sort of doom course, and we're all going to die, and then eventually we'll like get the bees will rebuild a new community, and we'll like the Earth will remember like what we did wrong during this incarnation as a species, and we'll get it together next time.
Let's not risk that.
Or maybe we'll really get it together this time and create a global civilization that's linked by the internet and heart-centered and wants to create the Age of Aquarius, and we're aiming for that. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Climate Show. See you next time.
And that's a wrap.